I'm April, 32 years old, and this should have been the happiest time of my life. 9 months pregnant, excited to meet our daughter, and then my water broke during a road trip with my husband Jake and his parents. What happened next still haunts me. Jake looked at me, contractions intensifying, and said, "You're a nurse, just drive yourself to the hospital." Then he left with his parents, leaving me alone in labor. I couldn't believe the father of my child abandoned me when I needed him most. Let me know where you're watching from, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to hear how this unbelievable betrayal unfolded and changed my life forever. I met Jake Williams 6 years ago at my friend Diana's summer barbecue in Seattle. I was 26 then, working as a registered nurse at Seattle General Hospital, specializing in pediatrics. The irony isn't lost on me now that I spent my days caring for children while my own husband couldn't care for me during childbirth. Jake stood out that day tall with warm brown eyes and an easy laugh that made everyone around him feel comfortable. He was 30, working as an architectural designer, and had just moved back to Seattle after spending several years in Chicago. We connected instantly over our shared love of hiking the Pacific Northwest trails and classic films from the 70s. By the end of the evening, we'd exchanged numbers, and he called me the very next day. Our relationship moved quickly. Jake was attentive, kind, and seemed genuinely interested in my life and work. We'd spend weekends exploring hidden trails around Mount Rainier or cozied up in my apartment watching old movies. After 6 months, he asked me to move into his downtown condo, and I happily agreed. "I've never felt this way about anyone," he told me on our 1-year anniversary dinner at Canlis Restaurant overlooking Lake Union. That night, under the twinkling city lights reflecting off the water, he proposed. Without hesitation, I said yes. I truly believed I'd found my forever partner. The wedding was beautiful, but looking back, I should have noticed the first warning signs. His parents, Martha and William, tried to control every aspect of our wedding planning. Martha insisted on changing the color scheme I had chosen because pastels photograph better than jewel tones, dear. William complained about the venue being too far from their home in Bellevue. Each time Jake would shrug and say, "Just go with it, April. It makes them happy." I wanted to start trying for a baby almost immediately after our wedding. I'd always dreamed of being a young mother building a family while we still had energy and time. Jake wasn't as enthusiastic. "I think we should wait a few years," he'd say. "Enjoy being married first, travel a bit more, save more money." All reasonable points, but after 2 years of waiting, I brought it up again. His parents had started making comments at Sunday dinners about how some women focus too much on careers and miss their window. The comments stung especially since I'd actually reduced my hours at the hospital in anticipation of starting a family. Jake finally agreed to try when I turned 30. I was overjoyed when after just 3 months I saw those 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test. Jake seemed happy too, hugging me tightly when I showed him the test, but I caught a flash of something in his eyes. Uncertainty. Fear. I dismissed it, caught up in my own excitement. The pregnancy wasn't easy. I suffered from hyperemesis gravidarum, severe morning sickness that lasted well beyond the first trimester. There were days I couldn't keep anything down and ended up in the emergency room for fluids. During those difficult months, I noticed Jake spending more time at work or with his parents rather than taking care of me. "They need help with the garden," he'd say, or "Dad wants me to look at some plans for their kitchen remodel." His mother would occasionally drop by with bland soup that worked for her pregnancies, but would leave quickly complaining about the smell of my essential oil diffuser that helped with my nausea. Not once did she offer to clean or help me when I was too sick to get out of bed. By my 3rd trimester, things had improved physically, but the distance between Jake and me had grown. He attended only one of the prenatal appointments, missing the 20-week scan where we found out we were having a girl. His excuse was always work, or his parents needing him for something seemingly urgent. Then, at 38 weeks pregnant, just 2 weeks before my due date, Jake announced that his parents wanted to take one last road trip to their family cabin in the mountains before the baby came. "You want me to go on a 3-hour drive to a remote cabin when I'm due in 2 weeks?" I asked incredulously. "Come on, April. The doctor said first babies usually come late anyway," Jake countered. "Mom and Dad really want this last trip together before everything changes." "Everything is already changing, Jake. I can barely sleep. My back is killing me, and I have to pee every 20 minutes. How is that going to work on a long car ride? We'll make stops, he promised. And the cabin has been renovated with a really nice bathroom. Mom made sure of that. I wanted to refuse to put my foot down and say it was too risky, too uncomfortable, too close to my due date. But the look on Jake's face, a mixture of pleading and that subtle manipulation I'd come to recognize, wore me down. Fine, I reluctantly agreed. But if anything feels wrong, we come back immediately. Jake grinned and kissed my cheek. It'll be fun, you'll see. One last adventure before we become parents. Little did I know that this adventure would become the ultimate test of my strength and the final breaking point of our marriage. The morning of the trip, I woke up feeling unusually achy. Not painful exactly, just a dull pressure in my lower back that came and went. I mentioned it to Jake as he packed the car. Probably just from sleeping weird, he dismissed. The cabin has a great mattress. You'll feel better once we get there. Martha and William arrived at 7 a.m. sharp, both wearing matching hiking outfits, despite knowing I wouldn't be able to join any trails in my condition. April, you look absolutely enormous, Martha greeted me, eyes widening dramatically. Are you sure it's not twins hiding in there? I forced a smile, one hand protectively over my belly. Just one very active girl, according to all the ultrasounds. William chuckled, loading their expensive matching luggage into the trunk of Jake's SUV. Well, you know those machines can be wrong. My golf buddy's daughter thought she was having one baby and out popped two. Imagine the surprise. The thought made my stomach turn with anxiety. Jake just laughed along with his father, completely missing my discomfort. The seating arrangement itself was the first disappointment. I had assumed I'd sit in the front passenger seat where I could adjust for my belly and swollen ankles. Instead, Martha had already claimed that spot for her motion sickness, forcing me to squeeze into the back with William. You don't mind, do you, April? Jake asked, though his tone suggested it wasn't really a question. Mom gets really carsick in the back. I bit my tongue and awkwardly maneuvered my pregnant body into the back seat, William barely shifting to give me room. An hour into the journey, the dull ache in my back had intensified occasionally, wrapping around to my abdomen. I started timing these sensations discreetly on my phone, not wanting to alarm everyone if it was just Braxton Hicks contractions. The practice contractions many women experience in late pregnancy. Martha dominated the conversation from the front seat, primarily discussing baby names with Jake, as if I weren't present. I still think William James is perfect if the ultrasound is wrong and it's a boy, she said. And for a girl, Martha Rose has such a classic ring to it. I cleared my throat. Actually, we've been considering Lily for a girl, after my grandmother. Martha wrinkled her nose. Lily. That sounds like a pet's name, doesn't it, Jake? Instead of defending our choice, or more accurately my choice that he had previously agreed to, Jake nodded. Mom might be right, April. Martha Rose has more sophistication. The betrayal stung. We had discussed names for months, and he had seemed enthusiastic about honoring my grandmother who raised me after my parents died. Now, with one comment from his mother, he was backtracking. William shifted beside me, his elbow digging into my side. Whatever you name her, just make sure it's something that won't get her teased at school. My colleague's daughter named her kid something bizarre, Juniper or Jupiter, something like that. Poor kid is going to be mocked mercilessly. The discomfort in my back was definitely intensifying. Every 20 minutes or so, it would peak and then subside. I took deep breaths, trying to stay calm. We were now on a winding mountain road, cell service becoming increasingly spotty. Jake, I said during a lull in the naming debate, I think we should maybe consider turning back. I'm not feeling great. Jake glanced at me in the rearview mirror. We're already halfway there, April. Is it just car sickness? Mom has some mints in her purse? No, it's not car sickness. I'm having some pain that's coming and going. Martha turned around to face me. Oh, that's normal at your stage. I had all sorts of aches and pains with Jake. You first-time mothers worry about everything. I'm a nurse, Martha. I know the difference between normal discomfort and... I stopped mid-sentence as another wave of pain hit stronger than before. Jake's eyes flickered to mine in the mirror. For a second, I thought I saw concern. Do you want us to stop for a bit? There's a scenic lookout coming up. Yes, please, I managed. 10 minutes later, Jake pulled into a scenic overlook area that provided a spectacular view of the valley below. On any other day, I would have appreciated the majestic pine trees and distant snow-capped peaks. Today, I just needed to get out of the car and stretch. William and Martha immediately walked to the viewpoint cameras ready. Jake helped me out of the car, his hand on my elbow. "Are you really okay?" he asked finally, showing some genuine concern. "I don't know," I admitted. "These pains are getting more regular. I'm worried they might be early labor." He frowned. "But you're not due for 2 more weeks. Babies don't always follow schedules, Jake." He looked toward his parents who were waving him over to take their picture. "Just walk around a bit. If you still feel bad after a few minutes, we can figure out what to do." Jake joined his parents while I paced slowly near the car, one hand supporting my lower back. I had just decided to sit back in the vehicle when I felt a warm gush of fluid run down my legs, soaking my maternity pants. My water had broken. "Jake!" I called out, panic rising in my voice. "Jake, my water just broke!" The 3 of them turned to look at me standing there in wet pants, clutching the car door for support. Jake's face went pale. Martha's mouth formed a perfect O of surprise. William just looked annoyed. "Are you sure?" Jake hurried back to me. "Of course I'm sure," I snapped. "We need to go to a hospital, now." That's when my husband said the words that would forever change how I saw him. "The nearest hospital is an hour back the way we came. Maybe you could drive yourself there while we continue to the cabin. We can meet you after you get checked out." I stared at him in disbelief. "Are you seriously suggesting I drive myself to the hospital while in labor?" Martha joined us. Her brow furrowed, not with concern for me, but with frustration. "This is exactly why I told you this trip was cutting it too close, Jake. Now our weekend is ruined." The contraction that hit me then was unmistakable, a powerful, gripping pain that made me double over. Any debate about whether this was real labor ended right there. "We need to go back now," I gasped when the contraction eased. "All of us. I need to get to a hospital." William sighed dramatically. "The cabin is only another hour away. We've been planning this trip for months." Jake looked torn, glancing between me and his parents. Then he pulled out his phone. "I have an idea. My buddy Sam lives about 20 minutes from here. I'll call him to come get April and take her to the hospital, and we can continue to the cabin." "What?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Jake was already dialing, walking a few steps away, as if to prevent me from interfering with this absurd plan. I heard him leaving a voicemail. "Hey Sam, it's an emergency. April's in labor at Cascade Viewpoint. Can you come pick her up and take her to Seattle General? Call me back ASAP." When he returned, he had the audacity to look pleased with himself. "Sam will call back any minute. He's always around on weekends." "Jake, are you seriously planning to abandon your pregnant wife in active labor to continue a vacation with your parents?" Martha intervened. "April, don't be so dramatic. Sam is very reliable, and Jake said he'll meet you at the hospital after we get settled at the cabin." Another contraction gripped me stronger than the last. I grabbed Jake's arm, digging my fingers in. "I need you. Now. This is your child being born." For a moment, I thought I'd gotten through to him. Then William cleared his throat. "Son, we should get the luggage sorted if we're splitting up. Martha and I will take our bags, and April won't need hers if she's going to the hospital." Like a puppet whose strings had been pulled, Jake turned away from me and moved to the trunk. I watched in horror as my husband and in-laws reorganized luggage, calmly discussing which bags should go where, as if we were simply changing vacation plans, not dealing with a medical emergency, the birth of Jake's first child. When they finished, Jake approached me with my purse and phone. "Sam will be here soon. I left him the exact location. You have your insurance card, right?" Tears streamed down my face, partly from pain, partly from the shocking betrayal unfolding before me. "Jake, please don't do this." He handed me the car keys. "In case Sam doesn't show up quickly, you can drive yourself. You're a nurse, April. You know what to do. The contractions are still pretty far apart, right? This isn't about my medical knowledge. This is about you choosing your parents over your wife and child." Jake glanced back at his parents, who were already seated in their rental car they'd picked up that morning, a detail that now made the entire "we need to all ride together" scenario even more infuriating. They could have driven separately the entire time. "I'll call you in a bit to check in," Jake said, backing away. "And I'll meet you at the hospital tonight or tomorrow morning, depending on how long the labor takes." As he turned to leave, he actually attempted a joke. "Hey, at least this way you won't have to hear Mom's birthing stories the whole way to the hospital. Silver linings, right?" And then they were gone, dust from the gravel parking lot settling around me as I stood there, another contraction building alone at a scenic overlook with spotty cell service and a broken water bag. My husband had just abandoned me in labor to go on vacation with his parents. The red taillights of the rental car disappeared around the bend, leaving me alone in the parking area. I stood frozen, unable to process what had just happened. Another contraction hit this one strong enough to make me brace against our SUV. I fumbled with my phone trying to call 911, but the screen showed only one wavering bar of service. "911, what's your emergency?" A distant, static-filled voice answered. "I'm in labor," I gasped. "My water broke and I'm alone at—" The call dropped the no-service notification, mocking me. I tried calling Jake but couldn't connect. Sam's number went straight to voicemail. "Hey, this is Sam. Leave a message or text me. I'm probably surfing." Surfing, of course. Jake's reliable friend was likely at the coast hours away with his phone in a waterproof bag. I climbed into the driver's seat, turning the air conditioning on full blast, as sweat beaded on my forehead despite the cool mountain air. The contractions were coming closer together, 15 minutes apart now. As a nurse, I knew first labors typically progressed slowly, but everything about this situation felt wrong. "Stay calm," I told myself, using the breathing techniques I'd learned in birthing class, the classes Jake had attended only twice before claiming work conflicts. First babies usually take hours to deliver. You have time. I tried calling 911 3 more times, finally getting through, only to have them struggle to pinpoint my location. The dispatcher promised to send help, but couldn't estimate an arrival time. "Ma'am, are you able to drive toward the main road? It would help emergency services locate you faster." I looked down at my soaked pants, felt another contraction building, and knew driving wasn't safe. "No, I don't think so. The contractions are too strong. Try to stay calm. Help is on the way." The next hour passed in a blur of pain and fear. I timed my contractions using my phone's app, 15 minutes apart, then 12, then 10. I rummaged through the car, finding a half-empty water bottle and some granola bars in the glove compartment. I drank sparingly, knowing dehydration would make everything worse, but also aware no one knew exactly where I was. As the second hour began, my phone battery dropped to 15%. I turned it off to conserve power, allowing myself to check the time only every half hour. The contractions were now 8 minutes apart and lasting almost a minute each. I thought about all the birthing mothers I'd cared for as a nurse, how I'd held their hands and assured them everything would be okay, how I'd told them their partners would be there for support. The bitter irony wasn't lost on me. During a particularly painful contraction, memories flooded back of other times Jake had abandoned me emotionally when my best friend was diagnosed with cancer and Jake skipped the hospital visit because his parents had surprise dinner reservations. When I received an award at work and he missed the ceremony because his mother needed help organizing her closet. When I spent Christmas Eve alone because his parents decided last minute they wanted to try a cruise and Jake couldn't bear to disappoint them. Each memory stacked upon the next like building blocks, constructing a reality I'd been avoiding. Jake had never been my partner. He'd always been his parents' son first. By the third hour, the pain had reached a level that made rational thought difficult. My scrubs training kicked in as I tried to assess my own condition. The contractions were now 6 minutes apart, lasting over a minute each. Active labor. I knew I should check my cervical dilation, but couldn't bring myself to do so in the car. I began to prepare for the unthinkable. I might have to deliver this baby myself in the back of an SUV at a scenic overlook in the Cascade Mountains. I crawled to the back seat, laying out a clean sweater I found in my overnight bag. I located the first aid kit under the passenger seat, grateful that as a nurse, I'd insisted on a comprehensive one. It had gloves, scissors, and basic supplies not ideal for childbirth, but better than nothing. I positioned myself as best I could, using the door handle to brace during contractions. Sweat soaked through my shirt, despite the cool air coming through the cracked windows. I practiced my breathing, trying to manage the pain without medication. "We're going to be okay," I whispered to my unborn daughter. "Mommy's got you. Mommy won't leave you." Unlike your father, I thought bitterly. Just as I was contemplating trying to drive again, a dangerous prospect given the intensity of the contractions, I heard a vehicle approaching. Relief flooded through me quickly, followed by anger. If it was Jake returning too little too late. But it wasn't Jake. A white truck with a Forest Service logo pulled up alongside my SUV. A park ranger, a woman in her 50s with salt and pepper hair tucked under her uniform hat, approached cautiously. "Hello, is everything okay in there?" She peered through the window, her expression changing instantly when she saw me. "Oh my goodness." I rolled down the window further. "I'm in labor," I managed between breaths. "My water broke 3 hours ago. Contractions are 6 minutes apart." The ranger, whose name badge read Garcia, immediately radioed for emergency services. "I've got a woman in active labor at Cascade Viewpoint. Need ambulance ASAP. Over." She then opened the back door, kneeling beside me. "I'm Maria. I've had some medical training. Let me help you until the ambulance arrives." Maria's calm presence was the first comfort I'd felt since this nightmare began. She took my vitals with supplies from her truck's first aid kit, helped position me more comfortably, and most importantly, held my hand during contractions. "Where's your partner?" she asked during a break between pains. "He left with his parents." I said the words still unbelievable, even as they left my lips. They continued to their cabin. Maria's expression darkened, but she maintained her professional demeanor. "The ambulance is about 20 minutes out. You're doing great." Just then, my phone rang, the battery still holding on by a thread. Jake's name flashed on the screen. Maria handed it to me, and I answered on speaker, too exhausted to hold the phone. "April, where are you? Is Sam with you?" Jake's voice sounded panicked. "I'm still at the viewpoint," I said through gritted teeth as another contraction began. "Sam never came. What, I've been calling him for hours. Why didn't you drive yourself to the hospital?" The ranger's eyebrows shot up at this. I could see her opinion of my absent husband forming in real time. "Because I'm in labor, Jake," I screamed as the contraction peaked. "I'm having your baby." "Oh, God," he said, his voice small. "We're turning around now. Mom and Dad are upset, but I don't care if they're upset." I cut him off. "A park ranger found me. An ambulance is coming. Don't bother coming back here. Just meet me at Seattle General." "April, I'm so sorry. I thought Sam would—" "Don't," I interrupted. "Just don't." I could hear Martha's voice in the background. "Well, how were we supposed to know Sam wouldn't answer? This isn't our fault, Jake." The rage that filled me then was clarifying. As the contraction eased, I spoke with a calm that surprised even me. "Jake, I need to focus on delivering our daughter safely now. The ranger needs my phone to coordinate with emergency services." It wasn't true, but I couldn't bear to hear his excuses or his mother's commentary for another second. "Okay, but April—" "Goodbye, Jake." I hung up as another contraction began. Maria squeezed my hand. "The ambulance just radioed. They're 10 minutes out. You're doing amazing." When the ambulance finally arrived, the paramedics quickly assessed me. "She's fully dilated," one called out after examining me. "We need to move fast." They transferred me to a stretcher and into the ambulance. Maria promised to secure our SUV and let the hospital know she had the keys. "Thank you," I gasped as they loaded me in. "You saved us." Maria squeezed my hand one last time. "You're the strong one here. Good luck, Mama." The ambulance sped toward Seattle General, lights flashing and siren wailing. In the back, guided by skilled paramedics, I pushed my daughter into the world. Lily Grace Montgomery was born at 5:32 p.m., weighing 7 pounds 4 ounces, with a strong set of lungs and a full head of dark hair. She was perfect. And her father missed it all because he chose a cabin trip with his parents over the birth of his child. As I held my daughter for the first time, tears streaming down my face, I made a promise to her and to myself. Things would be different from now on. I would be different, stronger, because Lily deserved better than what I had accepted for myself all these years. The realization was painful, but undeniable. The moment Jake had left me in that parking lot was the moment our marriage truly ended. I just hadn't signed the papers yet. The hospital staff at Seattle General welcomed me with a professionalism tinged with protective concern. Several nurses recognized me from the pediatric ward, their shock evident as I was wheeled in, having already delivered Lily in the ambulance. "April." "Oh my God," said Nadia, a fellow nurse I'd worked with for years. "What happened? Where's Jake?" I couldn't bring myself to explain it all yet, so I just shook my head and focused on Lily, who was being checked by the pediatric team. Despite her dramatic entrance into the world, she was perfectly healthy, 10 fingers, 10 toes, strong vital signs, and a powerful set of lungs that announced her presence to everyone on the labor and delivery floor. Once we were settled in a private recovery room, the on-call obstetrician examined me and confirmed I was stable but needed rest and monitoring. "You've been through quite an ordeal," Dr. Patel said gently, "both physically and from what the paramedics mentioned emotionally." I nodded, tears threatening again. "My husband—" "You don't need to explain right now," she interrupted kindly. "Your job is to rest and bond with this beautiful baby. Everything else can wait." But everything else arrived about 2 hours later in the form of Jake and his parents, all three bursting into my room without knocking. Jake looked disheveled and genuinely distressed. Martha and William, however, seemed more annoyed than concerned. "April." Jake rushed to the bedside, his eyes darting between me and the clear bassinet where Lily slept. "I'm so sorry. I got here as fast as I could. Is the baby okay? Are you okay?" Before I could answer, Martha interjected. "Well, this certainly wasn't how we planned our weekend. 3 hours driving up, 3 hours driving back, and now we'll probably have to find a hotel since it's too late to go back to the cabin." The nurse who was checking my vitals froze, shooting Martha an incredulous look. "Mom," Jake said weakly, "not now." William moved toward the bassinet. "So this is our granddaughter. Let me see her." Something protective and fierce rose within me. "No," I said firmly. "Not yet." All three of them stared at me. "April, don't be ridiculous," Martha scoffed. "We're her grandparents." "And I'm her mother," I replied, my voice gaining strength. "The mother who gave birth to her in an ambulance because her father thought a cabin trip was more important than being there for her delivery." Jake flinched as if I'd slapped him. "April, I told you I thought Sam would come. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. But I'm here now." 6 hours too late, I said quietly. The nurse Sandra, according to her badge, cleared her throat. "Ms. Montgomery needs rest. Hospital policy allows only one visitor at a time for the first 24 hours after delivery, especially in cases of traumatic birth circumstances." This was absolutely not hospital policy, but I could have hugged Sandra for the intervention. "That's absurd," William huffed. "We drove all this way." "As I understand it," Sandra replied coolly, "driving long distances was precisely the preference earlier today as well." She turned to Jake. "You can stay if Ms. Montgomery wishes, but your parents will need to wait in the family lounge." Martha opened her mouth to protest, but something in Sandra's stance, and perhaps the gathering of 2 additional nurses in the doorway, alerted by the rising tension, made her reconsider. "Fine," she snapped. "Jake will be in the waiting area. Don't be long. We need to find a hotel for tonight." After they left, an uncomfortable silence filled the room. Jake stood awkwardly at the foot of my bed, looking lost. "Her name is Lily," I finally said. "Lily Grace Montgomery. She weighs 7 pounds 4 ounces. She was born at 5:32 p.m. in an ambulance." Jake's eyes filled with tears. "I should have been there." "Yes," I agreed. "You should have." I don't know what I was thinking. When Mom and Dad started talking about continuing to the cabin, I don't know, I went along with it like I always do. It was like I couldn't think clearly. That's been our entire relationship, Jake. You not thinking clearly whenever your parents are involved. He moved closer, reaching for my hand. I pulled it away. "Can I hold her?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Yes," I said, "but wash your hands first." Jake carefully lifted Lily from her bassinet after scrubbing his hands thoroughly at the sink. His hands trembled as he cradled her tiny body. "She's so small," he whispered, awe in his voice. "She's actually quite average-sized, especially for being 2 weeks early." "She's perfect." A tear slid down his cheek. "I'm so sorry I missed this, April. I'll never forgive myself. It wasn't just today, Jake, I said, feeling surprisingly calm. It's been our entire relationship. Your parents always come first. I just never imagined it would extend to something like this. He looked up from Lily's face pain evident in his expression. I'll fix this. I promise I'll make it up to you both. I don't think you can. A knock at the door interrupted us. A woman in business casual attire entered with a clipboard. Hi, I'm Brenda Reynolds, the hospital social worker. I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing, Ms. Montgomery. Jake frowned. Why do we need a social worker? Brenda maintained her professional smile. It's standard procedure when we have unusual birth circumstances, particularly ones involving potential abandonment or distress. Abandonment. Jake's voice rose. I didn't abandon them. There was a misunderstanding. Mr. Montgomery, perhaps we could speak privately later, Brenda suggested firmly. Right now, I need a few moments with your wife. Jake reluctantly handed Lily back to me, his movements careful but unpracticed. I'll go update my parents, but I'll be back April. We need to talk. After he left, Brenda pulled up a chair. The paramedics were concerned about your situation. They filed a report, which is why I'm here. Would you like to tell me what happened? And so I did the whole story, pouring out of me in a jumble of hurt anger and disbelief. Brenda took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions, but mostly listening with empathetic nods. What do you want to happen now? She asked when I'd finished. I don't know, I admitted. I just know I can't go back to how things were. Brenda handed me her card. You have options, April. Legal options, support services, counseling. You don't have to decide anything right now. Focus on recovering and bonding with Lily. But know that there are people who can help when you're ready to take next steps. After she left, I held Lily close, breathing in her newborn scent. It's you and me, little one, I whispered, and I promise I will always put you first. When Jake returned, his parents were thankfully not with him. They're getting a hotel near our house, he explained. I told them I'm staying here tonight with you and Lily. He hesitated over the name. You really did name her after your grandmother. Yes, the name we agreed on months ago. Mom thinks... I cut him off sharply. I don't care what your mother thinks, Jake. Not about our daughter's name, not about anything else related to our family. Our family, he repeated, looking relieved. So we're still a family. I looked at him, really looked at the man I'd married 4 years ago. He seemed smaller, somehow diminished by his failure when I needed him most. I don't know what we are anymore, I answered honestly. But what I do know is that I won't be leaving this hospital with you and your parents. I'll be calling Diana to come stay with me and Lily at our house. What, April? That's not necessary. I can take care of you both. Like you took care of us today. The words came out more bitterly than I intended, but I couldn't take them back. Nor did I want to. Jake sank into the visitor's chair, head in his hands. What can I do to fix this? I don't think it can be fixed, Jake. Not right away, maybe not ever. What happened today wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. It was a choice, a series of choices that showed me exactly where your priorities lie. My priority is you and Lily now, he insisted. I'll prove it to you. We'll see, was all I could say. The next morning, despite Jake's protests, I called Diana. My friend was horrified by what had happened and immediately agreed to stay with me for as long as I needed. Jake reluctantly went home to prepare the nursery we'd only partially finished while I focused on learning to breastfeed and recovering from the delivery. When discharge day came, Jake arrived alone, a small Mercy with the car seat we had purchased months ago. He had been visiting daily, holding Lily and trying to make conversation, but things between us remained strained and formal. As a nurse wheeled me to the hospital exit, Jake, walking beside us carrying Lily in her car seat, he made one last plea. Please come home with me, April. Let me take care of you both. I am going home, I said firmly. Our home. But Diana will be staying with us. You can visit Lily during the day, but you'll be sleeping in the guest room if you stay overnight. His face fell, but he nodded. Whatever you need. I just want to be there for both of you. You should have thought of that before you left us at a scenic overlook. The drive home was silent, except for Lily's occasional coos. I stared out the window, wondering how my life had changed so dramatically in just a few days. I had left for a trip as a wife, excited to become a mother. I was returning as a mother, unsure if I would remain a wife. Diana was waiting at our house when we arrived, having used the spare key I'd given her years ago. She'd cleaned the entire place, prepared meals for the freezer, and finished setting up the nursery with the remaining items from our baby registry. "Welcome home, Mama," she greeted me with a gentle hug before cooing over Lily. "Oh, she's absolute perfection." Jake hovered awkwardly in the background, carrying in my hospital bag and the flowers he'd brought that morning, an attempt at reconciliation that felt hollow given the circumstances. "I'll put these in water," he offered, desperate for something useful to do. Diana gave me a questioning look. I hadn't told her exactly what arrangements I'd made with Jake, only that I needed her support. "Jake will be staying in the guest room for now," I explained once he was out of earshot. "He wants to be involved with Lily." "And what do you want?" Diana asked, her loyalty firmly with me. I looked down at Lily sleeping peacefully in her car seat. "I want what's best for her, and I'm not sure what that is yet." The first week at home established our new normal. Diana took the second bedroom, Jake slept in the small guest room/office, and I had the master bedroom with Lily's bassinet beside me. The arrangement was awkward, but functional, with Diana acting as both support for me and buffer between Jake and me. Jake's parents called constantly, demanding to see their granddaughter. I refused, using my recovery as an excuse to keep them away. Jake would take these calls in the backyard, returning with a frustrated expression, but not pressing the issue. To his credit, Jake was trying. He got up for night feedings, learned to change diapers, and took over household chores so I could rest. But underlying these efforts was a desperate energy that felt more about earning forgiveness than genuine connection with his daughter. 10 days after we came home, Martha and William showed up unannounced, arms loaded with extravagant baby gifts. "We simply couldn't wait any longer to meet our granddaughter," Martha declared, pushing past Diana, who had answered the door. I was nursing Lily in the living room when they barged in. Jake emerged from the kitchen, panic crossing his face. "Mom, Dad, I told you to wait until April was ready for visitors." "Nonsense," William scoffed. "We're family, not visitors." I adjusted my nursing cover, my heart racing with anxiety and anger. "You should have called first." Martha waved dismissively. "A grandmother shouldn't need an appointment to see her own grandchild." Diana moved protectively closer to me. "April is still recovering and establishing a nursing routine. This isn't a good time." "And who are you exactly?" Martha's tone was pure ice. "I'm Diana, April's friend. I'm staying to help her since she had a traumatic birth experience." The emphasis on traumatic was unmistakable. Martha's lips thinned. "We've all heard quite enough about that unfortunate misunderstanding. It's time to move forward." Jake stepped between his parents and me. "Mom, Dad, this really isn't the right time. I'll call you later and we can arrange a proper visit." "We've driven all the way here," William protested. "At least let us see the baby." Lily had finished nursing. I adjusted my clothing and held her against my shoulder, patting gently to burp her. "You can see her from there," I said firmly. "But I'm not handing her over today. I'm sorry you wasted a trip, but Jake should have been clearer about our boundaries right now." Martha's face flushed with anger. "Boundaries? We're her grandparents." "Yes, and I'm her mother. The mother who nearly gave birth alone in a car because my husband prioritized your vacation plans over his child's birth." The room fell silent. Jake looked miserable, trapped between his wife and his parents, just as he'd always been. "Jake," William finally said, "are you going to let her talk to us this way?" And there it was, the moment of truth, the crossroads Jake had faced countless times in our relationship. Would he finally stand up to his parents, or would he fold as he always had? Jake looked at me, then at Lily, then at his parents. I could almost see the internal struggle playing out across his face. "I think," he said slowly, "that April is right. We should have called first. And," he took a deep breath, "I should have been clearer that we're still working through what happened. It wasn't a misunderstanding, Dad. I made a terrible choice, and April has every right to set boundaries right now." Martha gasped, as if he'd slapped her. "After everything we've done for you." "Please," Jake interrupted. "Let's not do this now. I'll walk you out and we can talk later." As he ushered his stunned parents toward the door, I caught a glimpse of the man I'd hoped Jake would become, someone capable of standing up for his family, even against his parents. But one moment of backbone didn't erase years of submission or the trauma of Lily's birth. When Jake returned, he looked both exhausted and exhilarated. "I've never spoken to them like that before." "I know," I said simply. "Does it help at all? Does it make a difference for us?" I considered the question carefully. "It's a start, Jake, but we have a long way to go." The next few weeks settled into a strained routine. Jake took extended paternity leave, determined to prove his commitment to Lily and our marriage. His parents called daily at first, their messages oscillating between guilt trips and angry demands, but Jake held firm on the boundaries we'd established. No visits without invitation, no undermining my parenting decisions, no rehashing the birth incident as a misunderstanding. 1 month after Lily's birth, I finally agreed to meet with a marriage counselor. Dr. Levine was a straight-talking woman in her 60s who didn't pull punches. "What you experienced, April, was abandonment at an extremely vulnerable time," she said during our first session. "That's a significant trauma that won't be easily overcome." Jake nodded miserably. "I know. I don't even recognize the person who made that decision." "But it wasn't just one decision," I pointed out. "It was a pattern throughout our marriage." Dr. Levine helped us navigate these difficult conversations over the following weeks. Jake seemed genuinely committed to changing, even attending separate therapy sessions to work on his codependency with his parents. 2 months into counseling, during a particularly raw session, Dr. Levine asked me the question I'd been avoiding. "April, do you want to save this marriage?" The room fell silent. Jake held his breath. "I don't know," I finally admitted. "I love the father Jake is becoming for Lily, but I'm not sure I can ever trust him as a husband again." Jake's pain was visible, but he didn't argue or defend himself. Progress of a sort. At home, I began documenting all interactions with Jake and his parents in a journal, noting broken promises, successful boundaries, and Lily's developments. It wasn't just for potential custody discussions, though. I had consulted a lawyer about my options, but also to help me see patterns more clearly. One pattern became increasingly evident. While Jake was trying hard with Lily and me, he still struggled to prioritize us when his parents applied pressure. He missed Lily's first pediatrician appointment because his father needed help with an emergency plumbing issue. He was late for our counseling session because his mother had a meltdown over something trivial. Small incidents, perhaps, but telling ones. Meanwhile, I was finding strength in new places. I joined a support group for new mothers and made friends who understood the challenges of early parenthood. I reconnected with colleagues from the hospital who rallied around me with meals, baby clothes, and moral support. My world, which had gradually shrunk to accommodate Jake and his parents, began expanding again. 3 months after Lily's birth, Jake's parents escalated their campaign to be more involved in their granddaughter's life. Despite our clear boundaries, they began showing up unannounced again, usually when they knew Jake was home, but I was out at a doctor's appointment or support group meeting. The situation came to a head one Sunday afternoon. I had taken Lily to a mom and baby yoga class, returning to find Jake's parents' car in our driveway. Entering the house, I found Martha holding Lily, while William took photos Jake, standing uncomfortably nearby. "What is this?" I asked, keeping my voice level, despite the anger rising within me. Martha smiled smugly. "Just spending some quality time with our granddaughter. Jake invited us." I looked at Jake, who couldn't meet my eyes. "Is that true?" "They called as you were leaving," he said weakly. "They were already on their way." "And you couldn't say no," Martha interjected. "This ridiculous restriction has gone on long enough, April. We are Lily's grandparents. We have rights." "Actually, you don't," I corrected her. "Grandparents don't have automatic visitation rights in Washington state unless they've been granted by a court. And given the circumstances of Lily's birth, I doubt any judge would side with you." William puffed up indignantly. "Are you threatening to keep our granddaughter from us through the courts?" "I'm stating facts," I replied calmly. "Now I'd like you to give Lily back to me. It's time for her feeding and nap." Martha clutched Lily tighter. "I can feed her. We brought a bottle." "She's breastfed," I said, my patience wearing dangerously thin. "And she's my daughter. Please give her to me now." Jake finally found his voice. "Mom, give Lily to April." After a tense moment, Martha reluctantly handed Lily over. I immediately checked my daughter over an instinctive response that didn't go unnoticed. "For goodness sake, we didn't harm her," Martha snapped. "You harmed me," I said quietly. "You encouraged your son to abandon me in labor. You prioritized a vacation over the birth of your grandchild. And now you're undermining the boundaries we've set for our family's healing. That does harm to all of us, including Lily." William turned to Jake. "Son, are you going to let this continue? She's poisoning your daughter against us." Jake looked torn, the old pattern of compliance warring with his new attempts at independence. I didn't wait for his response. "I think you both should leave now. Jake, we'll discuss this after they're gone." "This is my house, too," Jake said, finding a spine at exactly the wrong moment. "They're my parents, and Lily is my daughter, too." "Yes, she is," I agreed, "which is why I've been flexible about our living arrangement despite what happened. But if you can't respect basic boundaries to protect our family, then perhaps this arrangement isn't working." "What does that mean?" Jake asked, alarm replacing defiance. "It means you need to choose Jake. Really choose this time. Is your primary family Lily and me, or is it your parents? Because I won't raise our daughter in this toxic environment." Martha gasped dramatically. "Toxic? How dare you?" Jake looked from his parents to me, holding his daughter. For the first time, I saw real clarity in his eyes, as if he was truly seeing the dynamic that had controlled our lives for years. "Mom, Dad," he said firmly, "you need to leave now. I love you both, but April is right. We set boundaries and you ignored them." "Jake," Martha protested. "Now please," he insisted. "I'll call you tomorrow." After they left, Jake and I had the most honest conversation of our marriage. He admitted his lifelong pattern of seeking his parents' approval, how he'd been taught that their needs and feelings always came first, and how terrified he was of disappointing them. "But I'm more afraid of losing you and Lily," he confessed. "I know I've made terrible mistakes and I'm trying to change. I just don't know if it's too late." Looking at him, this man who had been both the source of my greatest joy and my deepest pain, I realized I had a choice too. I could hold on to the hurt and anger using it as a shield, or I could acknowledge his efforts while maintaining my boundaries. "I don't know if it's too late either," I said honestly. "But I do know that Lily deserves parents who are either happily together or happily apart. This limbo we're in isn't good for any of us." The next day, I filed for a legal separation. Not divorce, not yet, but a formal agreement that established custody arrangements, financial responsibilities, and clear boundaries. Jake moved back in with his parents, temporarily visiting Lily on a set schedule. It was the hardest decision I'd ever made, but also the most necessary one. For the first time since Lily's birth, perhaps since the beginning of our relationship, I felt like I was standing firmly on my own ground, and from that solid foundation, I could finally begin to heal. 1 year later, I sat in our backyard, my backyard now legally watching Lily toddle through the grass on unsteady legs. At 15 months old, she was a determined little person with Jake's brown eyes and my stubborn chin. She squealed with delight as a butterfly fluttered past her small hands reaching toward the sky. "Careful, sweet girl," I called as she wobbled precariously. "Mommy's right here." So much had changed in that year. The legal separation had eventually transitioned to divorce, finalized just 2 months ago. The process had been surprisingly civil, with Jake finally accepting his role in the breakdown of our marriage. He had continued therapy, moved into his own apartment away from his parents, and had gradually become a more reliable presence in Lily's life. Our co-parenting relationship wasn't perfect, but it was functional, built on clear communication and well-defined boundaries. Jake had Lily every other weekend and one evening during the week. He never missed a pediatrician appointment or daycare event now, and he had even stood up to his parents when they tried to interfere with our custody schedule. Martha and William remained a challenge. Their access to Lily was strictly limited to Jake's parenting time, and even then, Jake had established his own boundaries with them. After several incidents of undermining and criticism, he had finally told them bluntly that if they couldn't respect his parenting decisions and treat me with basic courtesy, they wouldn't see Lily at all. It had been a watershed moment in our post-marriage relationship, watching Jake finally become the advocate I had needed him to be for all those years. For my part, I had returned to nursing part-time, found an excellent daycare for Lily, and created a new life that no longer revolved around managing Jake's relationship with his parents. I had friends again, real ones who showed up when things were difficult. Diana had stayed with us for 3 months after Lily's birth, and we remained close with her, serving as Lily's unofficial but devoted aunt. The support network I'd built sustained me through the hardest days of single parenthood, the nights when Lily was teething, and I had no one to tag in when exhaustion hit. The moments of doubt when I wondered if I'd made the right choice. The holidays that felt empty in ways I hadn't anticipated. But there were unexpected joys too, the freedom to make decisions without negotiation or compromise. The deep bond that formed between Lily and me as we navigated our new life together. The rediscovery of myself as an individual, not just a wife or mother. I had even started dating again cautiously. Nothing serious yet, but it was healing to remember that Jake's betrayal didn't define all men or all relationships. My therapist had helped me recognize the patterns I'd fallen into, my tendency to caretake, to silence my own needs to accept crumbs of attention and call it love. I was determined not to repeat those mistakes. The most surprising development had been Jake's growth. 2 months ago, on the day our divorce was finalized, he had asked to speak with me privately after dropping Lily off from his weekend visit. "I know this is strange timing," he'd said, sitting at my kitchen table where we'd once shared meals as a family, "but I wanted to properly apologize now that everything's official." I'd braced myself for the same half apologies he'd offered in the past, the ones that contained subtle blame or justification. Instead, he surprised me. "What I did to you that day, leaving you alone in labor, was unforgivable," he said, his voice steady and clear. "It wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. It was a choice that reflected years of putting my parents before you, before us. I've spent a lot of time in therapy understanding why I did that, but understanding doesn't excuse it." He paused, making sure I was listening. "You deserved a true partner, and I failed you completely. I know we can't go back, and I'm not asking for reconciliation. I just want you to know that I recognize the pain I caused, and I'm committed to being a better father to Lily and a respectful co-parent to you. You were right to leave April. It was the wake-up call I needed." I hadn't expected to be moved by his words, but I was. There was a sincerity and self-awareness that the old Jake had never possessed. "Thank you for saying that," I replied. "It means a lot to hear you take full responsibility." "I'm trying to model the kind of behavior I want Lily to expect from the people who love her," he said. "I never want her to think it's okay to be abandoned or to put up with less than she deserves." Now, watching our daughter chase butterflies in the afternoon sun, I reflected on the painful journey that had led us here. The traumatic birth that could have broken me had instead revealed a strength I hadn't known I possessed. The marriage that failed had taught me invaluable lessons about self-worth and boundaries. The man who had hurt me so deeply was gradually becoming someone his daughter could be proud of, even if he would never again be my partner. I had forgiven Jake not for his sake but for my own. Carrying anger and resentment had only weighed me down, keeping me tethered to the past. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting or excusing what happened. It meant freeing myself from the burden of bitterness so I could fully embrace my new life. As for Martha and William, I had reached a state of detached cordiality. I no longer expected them to acknowledge their role in what happened or to respect me as Lily's mother. I simply maintained firm boundaries and limited my direct interaction with them. Jake served as the buffer, now a role reversal that sometimes made me smile with irony. Lily stumbled toward me across the lawn, her face alight with accomplishment. I scooped her up, breathing in her sweet toddler scent of sunscreen and apple juice. "Mama," she declared, patting my face with sticky hands. "That's right, baby girl," I whispered. "Mama's got you. Always." And that was the deepest truth I'd learned through all of this. Sometimes protecting your peace means walking away from situations and people who threaten it, even when those people were once central to your life. Sometimes the worst moments reveal your greatest strength. And sometimes what feels like an ending is actually the beginning of a more authentic life. The path to healing hadn't been linear. There were still days when the memory of being abandoned in that car would hit me unexpectedly, bringing a fresh wave of hurt. But those moments grew fewer and further between as I built this new life, one founded on self-respect and the fierce protective love I felt for my daughter. Lily and I weren't broken by what happened. In many ways, we were stronger for having weathered the storm together from her very first breath. And while I couldn't predict what the future held, I knew with absolute certainty that I would never again accept less than I deserved, not for myself, and certainly not for the curious, joyful little girl now tugging at my hair and babbling about butterflies. "What do you think, sweet pea?" I asked, tickling her until she giggled. "Should we plant more flowers next spring to attract even more butterflies?" Lily clapped her hands in enthusiastic agreement, and I made a mental note to research butterfly gardens. Another small step in building this life of our own, one butterfly, one boundary, one brave decision at a time. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision to protect your peace and happiness? What gave you the strength to finally draw the line? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. And if you found something valuable in my journey, please like and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in unexpected places. Remember that sometimes the most painful moments can lead to beautiful new beginnings if we're brave enough to choose ourselves. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the courage to stand firm in your worth, just as I finally learned to do.